Hello, and welcome to the Lonestar Collective Podcast, the official podcast of Texas Cannabis Collective. My guest tonight is Jen Powell. You're originally from Texas. You moved to Jersey and recently came back to Texas. How you doing, Jen?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Please introduce yourself for our audience and tell us a little bit about your background and all that good stuff.
So my name is Jen Powell. I'm from Texas, originally from South Texas. I'm back here now. I'm happy to be back. But I spent the last 10 years living in northern New Jersey, where I was a librarian. So now I'm back in Texas. But why I'm here today is because about my journey using cannabis to overcome my drinking. So
Yeah, that's what we wanted to hear about, or you wanted to tell us about, was your story.
Right.
It's an interesting one. It's not an uncommon one,
Right.
but it's one that a lot of people find themselves in. So tell us basically how it all started.
Right. So I was in a very abusive relationship. I didn't realize it was abusive, but it was, and so I was using a lot of alcohol to deal with that situation, and it was as bad as it gets. It was very physical. It was obviously mental abuse, emotional abuse, all of that. But for a period of time, there was a lot of physical abuse, and I was very scared for my life. And through that time, I had always been a casual drinker, but I turned to hard liquor to deal with that just extreme chaos that was in my life. And I was drinking a bottle. It wasn't a bottle of vodka a day was pretty regular. Sometimes more than that. Sometimes I was drinking a bottle of liquor just to deal with the hangover from the day before. So it was really bad. My liver enzymes were off the charts. My eyes were yellow. So I can't stress enough how bad of an alcoholic I was. But I was somehow functioning. I was doing good in my career. I had a young child at the time. And then a friend of mine at work, because I hated drinking. It made me feel awful. It made me feel like a bad person, like a bad mom. The hangover itself every day, living with that was awful. So I was just living with all this guilt. And so my friend was like, why don't you try smoking weed? And so growing up near Mexico, I've always had weed in my life, so it's everywhere here. And then I lived in Austin for a while. It's everywhere in Austin. So I've always smoked, here and there. But it was never something I thought of as an adult because it's so frowned upon in our society. Alcohol's everywhere, but smoking is something you do when you're a kid. And that's acceptable, but when you're an adult, no.
Well,
but she gave me a bit.
I want to interrupt you for a minute. Just
of course.
You say you were drinking a bottle of vodka a day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, give us a little reference on size. I mean, that could mean a lot.
Okay,
was it like a pint, a quart?
Oh no, like a 750. A 750 was like a regular size bottle. So sometimes a 750 and a half. Like I guess that's a liter. I'm bad on measurements. So a normal size bottle, not like a pint bottle. A lot of alcohol, and I can't stress enough how detrimental that was on my health. Because I hate the taste of alcohol. So I would take a shot of vodka and I would chase it with some sort of juice or something. And then I would eat food to take the taste away. Yeah. So on top of being an alcoholic, I gained 100 pounds because I was eating so many more calories and I was sedentary. I couldn't function. I was drinking so much alcohol.
That's what people don't understand with alcohol, that not only does most alcohol contain a lot of sugar already,
right?
The alcohol converts into sugar in your liver. Right. So that's a double whammy. And then, like you say, the effect of alcohol, well, especially if you're drinking 24/7, which sounds like, I mean, I've been there. I've been down that road. When I got my first divorce, it hit me pretty hard, even though
Right.
it was I filed for it, I wanted it, but it hit me pretty hard because that was the mother of my 2 children, you know,
Mm,
and in all honesty, I went off the deep end with alcohol, so I've
right.
been there, it was literally 24/7. I passed
Yeah.
out on the couch with a cigarette that burned down to the butt between my fingers and a Budweiser tall boy in one hand, and that's how I
Right.
woke up,
Yeah.
every day,
No. Yeah.
and
I know.
I had beer for breakfast, I had beer for lunch, I had beer for dinner, you
Absolutely.
know?
Yeah. No. I know.
But
And
yeah,
you're drinking around the clock to stave off the hangover, just so you can kind of keep feeling okay.
well,
Yeah, it's
but
nonstop.
the aspect that you were talking about that I was getting at, though, when you have that constant alcohol, you're lethargic as well. You're not gonna get up
Yeah.
and move around and do stuff. You're gonna do as
No.
little as you have
Right.
to.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so your friend said,
Yeah,
"Try
so it was actually a
cannabis."
coworker too. Yeah, and she gave me a vape pen. She hooked me up. She said, "Try this." And it was instantly. I felt like I didn't have to drink anymore when I was smoking. And Chris, I can't tell you, I would sit with therapists and cry, like, please help me to stop drinking. I don't know what to do. And I would
Yeah,
quit and quit and quit and then start drinking and quit. And it was this instant feeling of, wow, I don't feel so stressed out anymore. And this could kind of help me. And on top of that, I can function as a mom, as a boss, as I'm not hungover the next day. So it was life changing. I can't stress that enough. And then I got onto Twitter. I've always had Twitter, but then I found the cannabis side of Twitter, and my story, as you said, is not uncommon of people using weed to
no,
overcome other addictions and to actually better their lives. Um, so when I heard that, and because I still felt this like, oh, I'm doing something bad, it was this feeling of I shouldn't be smoking. But when I heard that, it's so many people have the same story. Then it became important for me to connect with these people. And then eventually now on this side of it, when I feel like I'm so far in my recovery from alcohol, I feel like I can hopefully help other people. So that's why it's important to me to kind of share our stories with others to show, we are successful
absolutely.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually lost more than 100 pounds now, but I'm very active. I've completely changed my life. I'm divorced now.
Well,
Yay.
I was gonna say we're
Yeah.
gonna we're getting ahead of the game a little bit. Let's back up. You
Yeah.
talking about this change from or this realization that cannabis was better for you than alcohol. So did
Right.
you number one tell me when it was when this
Mhm.
happened? What point in your discovery that your relationship was also part of the problem?
Right.
Uh, was that before that discovery or was that after that
It
discovery?
was after.
Okay.
So I got sober July 2020. I stopped drinking and I hit my rock bottom. My eyes were yellow. My daughter one morning told me I looked like a monster, and I did. And so I said I can't do this anymore. So I stopped drinking. And I obviously knew my relationship was a mess from the start. That's a long story. But I
For
was just in
everybody it is.
denial. I was just in denial that I could get out of it. I guess I don't know how to word it any other way. But so
Yeah,
once I quit drinking, though, I realized that I deserved better and how bad it actually was. I think the alcohol helped me be numb to a lot of what was going on. So once I quit, and I'm a firm believer everything has to happen for a reason in a certain order. And so once I decided to leave the relationship, I was very naive to the fact that because we had been living completely separate lives for years, completely. So I thought, oh, we're going to get divorced now. It's going to be fine. Well, we're on our separate ways, but the the abuse got extremely bad over the past year. It's been awful. So if I wasn't sober before all that started, I don't think I would be alive today. And I'm not saying that lightly, but I don't think there's a way I could have survived that without being sober from alcohol.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he's in law enforcement too. So the whole thing was
geez.
just a
Do you
barrel
know how many
fun.
times? Do you know how many times that I have heard that exact same thing about someone
No.
in not just law enforcement, just first responders in general. But, you know, not trying to make an excuse by any means. Don't take this the wrong way.
No.
They sometimes have a reason that they don't understand themselves with PTSD and stuff like that.
Of course.
You know, but that still is no excuse to take it out on somebody else, bottom line. So
Right.
you found out about your relationship, you made the changes there, and then you found out about switching from alcohol to cannabis, right?
Right.
Okay. So when you got to that point, um, I gotta ask, um, what was the transition like? Was it like, okay, I'm done with alcohol completely? Or did you still try
100%.
to drink? Or because a lot of people play that game.
I know. I did too for so long, but it really was a literal switch in me. And I think, my daughter was a big part of that. But and once that switch was flipped in me, I didn't crave it. I didn't feel like drinking ever. I think once I thought about it, and then I thought about how I would feel like I wasn't in control of my body when I was drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I because my life was in chaos, having control over my body now makes me feel secure in the decisions I'm making and things like that,
Sure.
So that's very important to me. So that's not something I ever want back in my life at all. Not even
Yeah.
a drink here or there. Even though I feel like I probably could handle it at this point, maybe. It's just not something I ever want in my life again.
Yeah, that was going to be the next question is what are the cravings? Do you have issues with cravings ever, or are you?
No, not with alcohol. What I will say I have a problem with now is just the replacement addictions I have, but they're all healthy. Like I'm obsessed with running now. I'm a huge runner. It's a healthy addiction, but it's still, I,
Sure.
I can't function until I go run. So yeah.
But
So
running is like your coffee.
it really is. And then like you have to go on longer runs. I don't know. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, I can
But
imagine.
yeah, but you have to replace them with healthy habits. I became obsessed with work for a while. I'm not employed right now, but I'm choosing not to be employed. So yeah. Yeah, you just
Okay.
have to so for me it was filling my voids with positive things, instead
Okay.
of yeah.
Well,
That's
it's about time we take our first sponsor break. So
all right.
we'll get ready to do our first sponsor break, and then when we come back, we'll get you to tell us all about what the things were that you did to help you get over it and
All
move
right.
on from the alcohol.
Sounds
This
good.
is the Lonestar Collective Podcast. I'm your host Chris Cristolia. My guest this week is Jen Powell, and we'll be right back after this short sponsor break.
Oak Cliff Cultivators is a sponsor of Texas Cannabis Collective and the Lonestar Collective Podcast. Oak Cliff focuses on quality assurance with their hemp products while providing customer service to help you discover cannabinoids to meet your needs. Their product line includes hemp flower, pre-rolls, CBG tinctures, edibles, Delta 8, and merch. For more information on their products' quality or to shop online today, visit oakcliffcultivators.com or contact them at info@oakcliffcultivators.com.
Thrive Apothecary offers an experience truly unique from anything else in Texas. A full-service cannabis solution that is doctor-owned and offers customers every level of cannabis legally available in Texas. From traditional CBD products to emerging hemp-derived THC edibles, smokables, and now medical cannabis. As a licensed medical cannabis provider, prospective patients from anywhere in Texas can book a sponsored online eligibility consultation to determine if they qualify for a medical marijuana prescription from the comfort of their own home. Plus, for Texas veterans, the first prescription appointment is donated by Thrive. Visit thrivetx.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Lonestar Collective Podcast, the official podcast of Texas Cannabis Collective. Distributed on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Facebook, and much more, to give Texans information regarding policy, industry, and culture. Here is this week's host, Jesse Williams, and Gramps.
Welcome back to the Lonestar Podcast, Lonestar Collective Podcast, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective. My guest this week is Jen Powell. I'm your host, Chris Crisolia. They also call me Gramps, by the way. Jen is telling us her story about using cannabis to get away from alcohol and a life of abuse and trouble. And as we were going to break there, you were just about to tell us about different ways you were finding to occupy your time and other things to help you as well as to get away from alcohol.
Right. Yeah. So health and wellness has become extremely important to me. So I've just recently moved back to Texas from New Jersey, and in New Jersey, I was very career focused. I had a successful career as a library director, but moving into Texas now, I'm grateful to have some time off. So I'm really focusing completely on my mental health and taking a little break. Because it's really important to me to stay sober and just recover from the past 2 years. It's been a lot. I have some tremendous PTSD from what happened over the past year, especially.
That's understandable.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
Talking about an abusive relationship and all. You were talking about your health and exercise and running.
Yes.
What all things have you done and how has it improved your life and all that kind of stuff? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I started last year, January, I just decided to get more physical and I started walking. And actually, it started because every time I would have to talk to a lawyer, I would get so frustrated and go for a walk. And I thought, that made me feel better. Honest to God, I was dealing with my divorce lawyer and a work attorney at the same time. And so every time I would talk to an attorney, I would go for a walk and it would make me feel better. So that's my new slogan: go work out, you'll feel better. So I just started walking every single day. And then that wasn't enough. So I had to start running. And then, my 3 miles wasn't enough. So I would start running 5 miles. And so now I'm training for a half marathon. But my lifestyle before was drinking, sitting on the couch, watching TV, hardly interacting with my child. And now we're running through the neighborhood. She likes to go on races and I can interact with her. My lifestyle is complete. I have so much energy. So the lifestyle change is drastic. And I hate it when people talk about lazy stoners or you sit on the couch and play video games all day. And I just want to scream. Like I get up and I run. It makes me feel good.
You left a pretty active career up there in New Jersey as well, from what I know. Tell us a little bit about what all you left behind and what you were doing in the midst of being a cannabis user and an recovering alcoholic.
Yeah. So while I was an alcoholic, I was named the director of a little library, and it was a little library, a town, but we weren't right far outside of New York City. So it was a, thriving little neighborhood in northern New Jersey. But because of that, I got to work closely with the local government. I worked in the town. I worked closely with the mayor. The mayor was a good friend of mine. Town council in Jersey, cannabis was legal, so I was able to have open conversations. It was so nice for me to have to feel like I was making an impact in a community, through my job, and because I had the community also saw my health transformation. I'm losing weight. I'm feeling better. It's such a small community, so everybody knows everybody. So it was nice to be able to kind of talk with these people openly a little bit, and have them in my office. Can I tell you how I actually did it? But everybody else, I was like, oh, I just got my life together. So, but I was able to have conversations with local politicians about, the cannabis laws in our little town, and if they were going to let, how they were going to regulate it in our
So
area.
you did some
Um,
advocacy work as
yeah, a
well.
little bit. I did. I tried with our town council because our town council voted not to have a dispensary in our area. So I just, had a conversation with some of them about, why that decision was made, how we need to take that stigma away from cannabis users and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So I did try to advocate a little bit in my area, which felt good. It felt like I could have that sort of local politician thing. It felt like I could have an impact on, my area. Big
So what
politics gets a little
just
scary, but
just for our listeners here in Texas, what is
Mhm.
it like in New York, New Jersey? What is the cannabis market and everything like in that
It's
that part of the
awful.
country? Is it worse than Texas or
It's awful. Hold on, I'm getting my. I'm getting my card. I have my New Jersey. Can you see? I have my Jersey cannabis card. I did. But it's a racket. You know all about it.
yeah.
You pay a bunch of money, and then to have a card, you spend 2 seconds on a phone call with a doctor to get a card, right? It's all a joke. But you pay a lot of money to get it, and then you pay the state a lot of money at these, uh, you know, dispensaries. It's awful. It's a
Wh-
racket.
what are the tax rates like in Jersey?
I couldn't tell. It's been so long since I bought from a normal market, but it's ridiculous. You're paying like $70 for an eighth. So but I don't even know. I've bought black market for so long now. But why wouldn't you?
Well, and that's
see,
that's the that's the whole point that we try to get across to lawmakers is the whole argument about, well, the black market hadn't gone anywhere in legal states. It's still
right?
flourishing. Well, there's two major reasons for that.
Of
And
course.
number one is simple fact that because there is a legal market, guess what? It's a lot easier to have an illegal grow in a legal market than it is just
Hmm.
in Mexico and bring it across the border. Number
Right.
two reason why is because of the simple fact that uh, that the taxes and regulations are so outrageous in legal markets that you can get it from a legacy market
Right.
a whole lot cheaper and still and a lot of times get a better quality product.
Right. Well, and you're working with people, growers that you respect and trust, and it's a whole different experience. Yeah. So I wish
Well,
I could
yeah,
grow
that's
myself.
that's the thing they don't understand. The black market, when they hear black market or legacy market and stuff
Yeah, I'm
like that,
sorry.
lawmakers think it's it's uh the stuff coming across the border.
Right.
That's all they see in their mind. And
No.
I got news for you. Even back in the 80s and 90s, 75% of the marijuana sold on the black market or the legacy market in the United
Right.
States was grown right here in the United States. And
Hmm.
that was in the 80s and 90s. I would
Right.
say it's closer to 90, 95% now
Mm.
because
Yeah,
everything
absolutely.
you see what they're getting when they have their bust down at the border. It's brickweed. When's the last time you saw any brickweed anywhere?
A
I can't.
dispensary?
No, that's pretty
Dispensaries
sad.
dispensaries are notorious for having the worst weed.
Yeah, well, I don't know about New Jersey. I'm in New York. I've never been to anywhere up there. Colorado was pretty good when I've been to Colorado. That's the only place
Yeah,
I've
I
been and
haven't
bought
gone.
legal weed.
Well, and the other problem in New Jersey was it became legal, and it took a full year. I had my medical card, so I could technically buy, but it took a full year for stores to open to the public. I mean, what a racket! What a racket! Just
Well,
nonsense.
you
So
know, you want to talk about a racket. Do you know the history of the Texas Compassionate Use Program? Uh, it's a good one.
I'm scared. I'm scared to learn about Texas
Well,
quite yet.
I'll give you the brief rundown.
No,
It's
yeah.
it's passed in 2015, Texas Compassionate Use Program, or what they call the teacup, uh,
Mhm.
and it was for only severe intractable epilepsy at that time. It was only 0.5% was the maximum THC that it could be by dry weight, and then it was only in tincture form was the only type of medication that they could have. And so, uh, it not only was it super, super restrictive on who could get it, because if you had to have this super, you know, intractable epilepsy, but you had to be basically treated by two neurologists in the beginning, and both had to recommend you for the teacup program. So you had to be recommended by two doctors, not one. And then
Wow.
when you got the meds, there was to get the level of THC that the doctor was telling you to take to control your seizures, you might be taking 2 cups of carrier oil a day
Oh my gosh. Because there's a little. Oh my
because there
gosh.
was so little THC in it. So that was
Right.
the beginning, and it did not go into effect until 2017. Uh, and it was, I think it was almost 2018. I could be misspeaking now, but I think it was almost 2018 before meds were actually available to patients. But 2019, we got an expansion, a lot of more conditions added. Uh, 2021, got a few more conditions added, uh,
Mm.
and to the point of all cancer and all PTSD for the two big ones, but all kinds of neurodegenerative conditions. There's like 150 on there now. Excuse me. But THC got raised from 0.5% to 1% by dry weight, which is a lot of people still go,
1%.
oh God, right? But the thing you got to remember about that is that language by dry weight. Texas still produces 20 milligram edibles, just like any other state currently.
Mhm.
The difference between Texas and other states now is that's all they can produce: edibles,
Hmm.
tinctures, drinks. There's still no inhalable products whatsoever allowed, which is ludicrous for people like me who suffer from severe neuropathy when that is the number one way to treat it is to inhale it.
So what's the logic there? Or
Uh, they don't want anybody getting stoned.
but if you're taking an edible, you're gonna get stoned, right? So what's
Well, we got a whole nother ball of wax with the, because the Delta 8, Delta 10
Oh god, yeah.
scenario is so rampant, right? It's
Mhm.
everywhere. And of course, the hemp derived, they've figured out that they just make a bigger gummy or a bigger Rice Krispie treat, and they can have a nice Delta 9 hemp derived. They're all over
Mhm.
they're in every store. They're in convenience stores around every corner.
I've seen,
So
but did they actually do anything?
yeah, they're pretty good
Do they?
actually.
Are
Yeah.
they?
So I actually was a judge in the Texas Hemp Awards recently, and
Oh, really?
I was quite impressed with a lot of the products this year.
Oh, nice.
Uh,
That's great.
it be interesting to see who the winners were, but because there was good and bad, and there was mediocre, but there were some that were nothing to me is exceptional. But I have such a high tolerance; it's hard for me to grade anything, that
Right,
high. So I
right.
usually start out in the middle. and say, okay, this didn't really do much for me. And I go down on that if I'm scoring. And,
Uh-huh.
if it does something for me, I go the other direction, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. At any rate, so sounds like exercise and just career and everything has really been what propelled you in this quest to get completely away from alcohol, right? What
Absolutely. Away
what are
from
what is the other? You mentioned the weight gain. Tell us the downside to that.
the downside of my drinking.
No, the downside
Or
to your weight gain. There's been a
oh,
positive effect
oh
on
god.
that regard as well. Because you threw out a number there. I don't generally talk about weight in women, but you threw out a number of what you gained while you were
Oh
drinking.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I figured I'd
Yeah.
give you
So
the
I
opportunity to say what we're trying to give a success story here, right?
yes, yeah. So I've lost 111 pounds now. I gained 100 pounds. Yeah. So I'm sorry, what was the question?
That was the question. So
Yeah.
that's the positive effect.
Yeah. I mean, and I was just hating life. I was miserable inside my body because that wasn't my body. I gained all this weight. I didn't know who I was. I couldn't function. I was so embarrassed. I wouldn't go see friends. I was, so not only was I an alcoholic and in this miserable relationship, I was also isolating because I hated myself.
Yeah.
So my life is just so completely different. I'm so full of life. I want to, I'm going out with my friends constantly, reconnecting with old friends, and just so much happier. I mean, obviously, still a lot is going on, and I'm dealing with a lot of the, after effects of the relationship
Sure.
I was in. But I can't stress. My life is so much better now because of all the
Yeah.
changes that I was able to make.
Well, we're coming up on time for our second sponsor break. So when we get back from the sponsor break, we'll talk about what preempted your move to Texas and what you're doing now, and then we'll get into a little bit of how you can get more involved here in Texas if you want to.
Sounds great.
Okay. All right. This is the Lone Star Collective Podcast, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective. And we're going to take our quick sponsor break, and we'll be right back after these few messages.
Oak Cliff Cultivators is a sponsor of Texas Cannabis Collective and the Lonestar Collective Podcast. Oak Cliff focuses on quality assurance with their hemp products while providing customer service to help you discover cannabinoids to meet your needs. Their product line includes hemp flower, pre-rolls, CBG tinctures, edibles, Delta 8, and merch. For more information on their products' quality or to shop online today, visit oakcliffcultivators.com or contact them at info@oakcliffcultivators.com.
Thrive Apothecary offers an experience truly unique from anything else in Texas. A full-service cannabis solution that is doctor-owned and offers customers every level of cannabis legally available in Texas. From traditional CBD products to emerging hemp-derived THC edibles, smokables, and now medical cannabis. As a licensed medical cannabis provider, prospective patients from anywhere in Texas can book a sponsored online eligibility consultation to determine if they qualify for a medical marijuana prescription from the comfort of their own home. Plus, for Texas veterans, the first prescription appointment is donated by Thrive. Visit thrivetx.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Collective Podcast, the official podcast of Texas Cannabis Collective. Distributed on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Facebook, and much more, to give Texans information regarding policy, industry, and culture. Here is this week's host, Jesse Williams, and Gramps.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Collective, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective. I'm your host, Chris Kersolia, and my guest this week is Jen Powell. I want to say a survivor of alcohol addiction is what I want to introduce you as, and a cannabis patient / advocate. Welcome back.
Thanks.
we were talking about how your life has gotten better and all
Mhm.
that good stuff. Uh, and I just wanted to have you bring up, because you made a recent move. You mentioned it earlier about your move
Mhm.
from New Jersey back to Texas.
Mhm.
So I wanted you to bring up what prompted you to move back to Texas,
Okay.
because you lived in Texas before, as you said,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
uh, what your plans are and for the future. And of course, then we'll get into what you were talking about earlier about getting more involved here in Texas.
Yeah. All right. So I recently moved back to Texas. I've been back 3 months now. But last summer, I officially decided to make the move, and it was all very hard for me because again, I became extremely career driven. I was very successful in New Jersey, but the reality of the situation was my divorce was getting very messy. It was uh, not a good situation for me to live in. Even once I was divorced, it was not going to be a safe situation for me to live in. I was, my tires were being slashed. I was being stalked
Mm.
at work. It was a bad situation. So my brother is actually an attorney, and he swooped in and said, "I want to build you a place on my property, and I need you and your daughter to get out of there." And so he came in, and I feel like he rescued us. He built us this beautiful, amazing place. um, and that was the hardest thing for me because it felt like everything in my life was shutting down. I was losing my career. I was losing my friends. I was losing the place I loved in New Jersey. I love New Jersey. Um, Losing my marriage, which I was happy about, but um, but anyway, so that was hard. But I realized that this is all gonna be for my benefit. I need my family. I've just been through the hardest situation of my life. I need support, and in Texas, I have so much family, and I have a lot of friends that I'm reconnecting with. I have a lot of high school friends that still live in my hometown. I went to college in Austin. I still have a lot of friends there that I'm reconnecting with. So that's been fun. so so being career driven, I immediately threw myself once I got back to Texas, threw myself in the job search, and because that's just who we are.
Yeah.
So I actually was offered a great position at my dream library. It's the largest library in the nation, the largest single floor library in the nation, and um, I took a pause and I said, I need to take a break for myself for a while. And that's so hard for all of us, right? What am I going to do with myself? But I I had to realize that financially I can afford it right now. And I don't think I'm going to have this opportunity ever again in my life where I financially can take a little break. And I
Yeah.
don't have a mortgage right now. And when is that going to happen again? Um,
Yeah.
so so I declined that job actually, and so I just decided to take maybe a year off just to focus because I have a lot of work to do as far as the PTSD therapy recovery, and I'm looking into alternative treatments for PTSD, as well as obviously cannabis use. But so I have a lot of work to do on myself. So that's what I'm planning on doing for the next few months, at least. At least 6 months. I don't want to give an exact time frame, but it's really important. I don't think our society ever does that enough. I know a lot of people aren't in the situation where they can afford to stop
Yeah.
and take a mental break,
It,
but
it's hard to do. I mean, I'm doing it myself right now. I've
yeah.
I've I've left my career job
Hmm.
on the 6th of January was my last day. And
Right.
I mean, I gave them 7 months notice, and told them that
Hmm.
I was leaving. Told them I'm burnt out. You know, did commercial construction for 35 plus years.
Wow.
Uh, and I did work from the field all the way up. The last 8 years I spent in the office as a project manager, and looking at four walls all day long about killed me.
Yeah. No, I know.
So, but luckily I'm financially in a position where I can do it. I
Right.
do still have a mortgage and a truck payment and whatnot, but I am in a financial
No.
position where I can take a couple months off, do me a reset. Just so happened I timed it with our legislative session in Austin, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But
Perfect.
uh, my hope is I can get into something within the cannabis industry here in Texas as it continues to grow and expand.
Yeah.
I've got my foot in the door in a couple of places. Whether those things will finish and materialize, we'll see.
Mhm.
Time will tell. But luckily, the place I left said the door is always open should you need a
Oh,
place to come
nice.
back to. So I have that aspect, right?
That's
But
good.
anyway,
Yeah.
my whole point in bringing that up, not to interrupt you, but to just say I totally, totally, totally get the whole aspect of making that decision because it took me 3 years to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew I was at that point 3 years ago,
Mhm.
and I knew I needed to make a change, and I
Right.
did. I did make some suggestions to the company that I worked for and said, "Hey, why don't you make this position and give it to me?" And they said, "It's a good idea, but we don't wanna do that right now." You know?
Right.
So,
Mhm.
but, ultimately, I had to pull the plug. I just had to because
Yeah.
it was that or go nuts, right?
Mhm.
So
No, feel so fortunate to be in this position where I can do that. My heart goes out to people who can. I don't know because some days I don't know how I function. My brain just feels like I can't process things properly because of the PTSD.
sure.
But if I was just a normal American citizen, I would have to be going to a job, and I couldn't know. I don't know how I would do it. So I'm so grateful I have this opportunity to just take some time, be a good mom, spend a lot of time with my daughter. So that's exciting.
So how old is your daughter, by the way?
She's 6. She's almost 7. She's a
Okay.
first grader.
She's a little
Yeah,
one then.
she is. She's little. She loves Texas.
So, what are your questions? You said you wanted to get involved in Texas. What are
I
your first
do.
questions? Tell me what you want to know, and I'll see if I can help.
Well, I love how you advocate for your son, in memory of your son. That's so amazing, all the work you've done. So now that I am back in Texas, like I said, I so enjoy working with the community, like I did in New Jersey, and feeling like I have an impact in some way. So I really hope to get involved to see how I could make an impact or how my story could make an impact with whether that be legislature. I don't even know where to begin. It's so overwhelming.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
I will try to give you as good an update as I can. Um,
yeah.
there are some organizations that you could probably look for on. They're on Twitter. Texas Normal's on Twitter, and FIT, it's Foundation for an Informed Texas, is also on Twitter. Excuse me. They're actually both run by basically the same person. Uh, FIT is a nonprofit organization that helps fund the legislative work that Texas Normal does. Whereas
Hmm.
Texas Normal can't do, uh, you can't use that as a tax deduction when you donate to Texas Normal, but if you donate to FIT, you can use that as a taxable deduction. So it's kind of roundabout to get businesses and people to donate for that tax
Right,
deduction,
right,
right?
right. Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
anyway, you can look those up on Twitter. But basically, the state of Texas, the quick, easy,
Mhm.
no real quick, easy rundown.
No, there's nothing quick
But
and go.
we have legislative session every 2 years, right? Uh, we do not have what a lot of other states have with the ballot initiative, where you can do a
Mm,
petition and get a measure put on a ballot. That is not
mhm.
something we have in Texas. So we
Interesting.
have to go through the legislative process. Now, we can go through the legislative process and get them to do what's called a joint resolution, which basically they pass it through the House with a supermajority, then it passes through the Senate with a supermajority. It has to be a supermajority in both chambers, and then that puts it on the ballot. Once
Hmm.
it's voted on, if it passes, then that puts it back in the hands of the legislature to write the law and the regulations, et cetera. So you're talking about a 2 to 6 year process, right?
Wow.
So
Oh,
the
Texas. Oh, Texas.
likelihood of that happening is slim and none. So where
Right.
we're at is we got, as I explained earlier, we got the teacup program in through 2015. We got expansions in 2019 and 2021. They are pushing, I say they, we are pushing for expansions to the teacup again. We're going to try to either get the THC limitation removed and left up to the physician to decide how much and how often, as it should be,
Mhm. Right.
or at least get it raised to 5%, which would open the door massively to a lot of other things and make medications more affordable for
Mhm.
patients.
Mhm.
Uh, so that's and then they're going to also try to get some conditions added like chronic pain and a few others. So that's where we're at on the medical side. Uh, Chances of getting any smokable products, probably not going to happen. Just because the mentality is so out there in that regard, you know. So that being said, excuse me, when you look at the fact of all the legal products that are now available in Texas that we talked about earlier with the Delta 8, the Delta 10, the HHC, the THCO, and the hemp derived Delta 9.
Mhm. It's also silly.
Well, what's so silly about it is the cat is out of the friggin' bag, folks. So far out of the bag.
Yeah.
With the Delta
Right.
8, I mean, there's Delta 8 pre-rolls around every corner.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
are.
and perfectly legal to buy them, you know. And here's the
Right.
thing,
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of people who would be on the teacup program who are using the Delta 8 product. And this is my argument. And it's an argument of a lot of scientists and physicians too, which is what makes it my argument. We know what happens. There's enough history of people smoking marijuana, right? Putting
Right.
flame
Right.
to it, inhaling it, and smoking it. We know what happens when you smoke Delta 9.
Right.
Delta 8, while it is a naturally occurring cannabinoid,
Mhm.
what's in the stores is not
Mhm.
because they cannot, well, they can, but they have to do it on such a massive scale to get such a small amount of the Delta 8
Mm.
without doing a synthetic conversion.
Oh, right.
Anything that's on the market today is most likely a synthetic conversion. There are some companies out there who are doing some extraction of biomass and whatnot, and on
Mhm.
massive scales, and making products that are derived Delta 9 or
Mhm.
Delta 8 as well. But they're few and far between. Uh, Most of it, they're taking CBD and converting it to Delta 8. Okay,
How does this make sense though? A
we don't.
natural plant.
Well, that's my thing. We don't know what
Oh,
happens, and that's what all these doctors that I know are saying. We don't know what happens. There's not enough history. It's only been around
right.
a couple years
Right.
in mass like it is now. So
Mhm.
it's like the vape cartridges all over again.
No.
We don't know what's going to happen to all these people. A year from now, 2 years from now, they're going to start having
30 years
showing
from
up.
now, I know.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
uh, it's crazy that that's legal, but the
Right.
natural Delta 9 is not.
A
But
natural
here's the
plant.
thing. We have a senator, of course. We know the bill has probably come from higher up for origination, and this senator is just the avenue that's being used to put it into the process. Senator Perry out of Lubbock has filed a bill, and I don't want to say the wrong bill. number,
Yeah.
but it's a Senate bill. But this Senate bill basically is going after all the Delta 8, Delta 10. It's going after any form of THC that's synthetically derived.
Hmm.
So that's going to put a lot of people out of business in Texas because
Right.
there are a lot of businesses that have popped up in the last 2 years, right? So
Wow.
there's that argument that they're going to fight to keep it. My argument is, okay, you don't want that. That's fine and well, and I don't have a problem with that. Let's get the real thing, because we know what's going to happen with this. Nothing bad anyway. We don't
Right.
know what's going to happen with that other stuff, you know.
Mhm.
And even the doctors that I know, they say, well, it's one thing to ingest it.
Right.
We don't know what happens to it when you burn it and then inhale it.
Mhm.
That's different than just eating it. So
Right.
that's the big thing. But ways you can get involved in Texas depends
Mhm.
on what lengths you want to go. I mean,
Well, I'm free for the next few months, so I've got a lot of time.
well, I mean, there's, of course, Texas Normal puts out what they call action alerts, which is another reason why I say follow them. But
I'm writing down.
what they do is it's real neat. You click on this link that they'll post, and they'll tweet it out too. But you click on the link, you put in your name and address and your email address,
Mhm.
and it basically pulls up who your reps are, your rep and senator, and
Nice.
it already has a pre-written form letter there that you can just hit send, or you can ad lib to and edit if you prefer to add or take
Right.
away, and then
Mhm.
hit send. Excuse me, my voice is trying to disappear on me. But at any rate, that's one way that you can get involved. Of course, obviously, you can go to who represents me.texas.gov and find out who your reps are that way, and just email them and call them directly. But there's a link. I'll send it to you if I don't
All right.
forget. There's
Sounds
a
good.
link
I'll remind
to
you.
a particular page that they have uh, that they update with all the cannabis related bills. So they have penalty reduction bills, medical, full legalization bills, a couple that have been filed and all that. And they update those pages on a regular basis. And so you can like bookmark that page and go back and look and see if there's anything new and stuff. One thing that if you're interested, if you have the free time,
I think I do.
of course, it involves traveling to Austin. But when we
Yay, that's my favorite.
I figured you might, since you lived in Austin for a period. When
I
they
did.
get to the point where we get bills and we get to committee hearings, uh, if you can come and testify in person,
Yeah.
uh, that goes a long way. The more people that they literally, usually, normally you get 3 minutes to give your little
Right.
spiel.
Talk. Uh-huh.
They usually cut us down to 2. And
Really?
they've been known to cut us down to a minute and a half because we have so many people show
So
up.
many. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
I've been there. I've gotten there at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning before and left at 11:30, 12 at night. And sometimes
Wow.
don't leave till 3 or 4 the next morning.
Right. I know. That's so exciting.
It's
That's so
crazy,
exciting.
but
I
yeah,
love being part of that. Yeah.
it can be an adrenaline rush too, though,
Oh,
when
sure.
just
Yeah.
the anticipation and all. But when they have a committee hearing, there might be 50 bills in that
Right.
hearing. You don't know
Mhm.
when yours is going to be called, but you better be
Right.
there, because when they call the bill and call your name, if you're not there, next.
Right. Uh-huh. Yeah.
But
So
those
it
are some
works.
easy ways you can get involved. Uh,
No, that's great. I
just
do want to be more involved now that I'm in Texas.
stay up to date with the bills, and then of course follow the Texas Cannabis Collective too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
we're always doing stuff
Well,
constantly.
you're doing great things.
In fact, I'm headed for Austin tomorrow.
No way.
Gonna be in Austin on Wednesday, visiting every single office in the Capitol.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Good for you.
That's just one trip. I've already been once this year.
No, that's amazing. You need to
But,
document that. I love it.
that's something else that Texas Normal does too. They and they probably will get into that more into February, like mid-February-ish. But there's a big coalition that the collective is a part of where they try to do every week, where they do what they call direct actions, where people go and hand out something information-wise, information, testimony, research, uh, just different stuff, different days. So
That's
just
great.
we keep poking at them, keep poking the
Yeah,
bear. That's all we can do.
I know. That's right.
So are there
Well,
any
you're doing
final
good.
words that you have for, words of encouragement, maybe for somebody who may be in a situation like you were, something
Yeah.
like that before we close this out?
Well, I just want to say to anyone who is struggling with alcohol or an abusive relationship, I know how overwhelming that might be, or how dark a period that might be. There's always help. And I'm here to talk if anybody needs any guidance or help, just advice. Sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. So I'm here if anybody needs. You can find me on
Well,
Twitter. Jenny O82 on Twitter.
that's what I was fixing to say. Tell everybody how to find you.
Yeah, so I'm Jenny O82 on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram as Jen Librarian 82. So you can find me there also.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you
So
again.
reach out, use community.
I want to thank you again for joining us, telling your story. It's hard for people a lot of times to come forward and talk about the difficult times that they've been through and things. But these stories help other people come forward, and they help our lawmakers understand that this is a medicine, not just something people go out and party with, right?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. It's so fun to talk to you. We've been talking on Twitter for so long now. It's so
Yeah,
fun
finally to
to
see
talk
face
to
to face.
you.
It's not in
Yeah,
person, but it's close.
I know.
But and thanks for putting up with my flubs with knocking microphones over. And
No.
tonight was not my night.
No, you're good. All right. So nice to
Everybody that don't know, this is only my second week to push all the buttons and stuff, and we moved stuff around this week, so it kind of threw me off a little bit.
You're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. Anyway,
You
thanks
are.
again for joining us, and appreciate you telling your story. It's been
Thanks for having
interesting and a
me.
great one.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
I want to thank everybody again for joining us here on the Lonestar Collective Podcast, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective. And want to be sure that, everybody comes and joins us every week, like and subscribe so you don't miss our new episodes, because we're constantly bringing these new stories, not only of just people like Jen, but other people like lawmakers and stuff. And if you have questions sometimes, we can get those out there too. So thanks again for joining us.